Hello everyone and welcome to the next edition of Fables of ESOP, where we bring to you voices from practitioners, from founders, from leaders in the startup space, from the businesses in the world of equity compensation or ESOPs, right? And today we have a very special guest with us. We have Vedang Patel. He's the co-founder and director at the Soul Store. So Vedang, welcome to Fables of ESOP and good to have you here.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Wonderful. So Vedang, as we just discussed, right? So at Qapita, we basically evangelize ESOPs to the core, right? We want more and more equity owners. Equity is what creates value for everyone, and employees are core, components of building value for the companies, and and hence ESOPs provide a way to incentivize them. So we'll definitely double down on discuss more on how you have gone about. But before that, Vedang, many of them might be listening to you for the first time. So would love to get a quick introduction about the Soul Store, about your journey as you began this venture. Yeah.
So I think we began back in 2013. We're going to complete 10 years in a couple of weeks. Back I was 23 when we started it. All of us were 23 actually. And when we started it, honestly, we didn't even know that ESOPs kuch hota hai. We didn't know VC also, there's such a thing, and there is any you raise money. We thought you just take a little limited pool of money which you have, and you start a business and hope to be profitable, and you continue growing on that. Our naiveness and a lack of knowledge didn't let us think only beyond our own capital, and that's one of the biggest differences on the way we started. In fact, we literally, I've said this many times, we literally started with a cupboard of t-shirts. We built out a small website for 25,000 rupees and we went live. And that's about it. Like, we printed those t-shirts with some funny slogans and quotes, and then slowly built it out, made that one cupboard into 2, into 3, into 4. Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, and then one thing led to the other, and it became a large enough business. And then, so that actually brings me to the next point. And like you rightly said, it's a very different way of building a business, right? Like until now, like any startup, like I stay in Bangalore, it's like first you raise capital, and then you think about how do you want to build, what you want to build, and things like that. But you went a very different approach, right? So you first kind of demonstrated a positive cash business, right? And then later on in your journey, you decided, okay, let's maybe look at raising capital and growing faster, perhaps, right? So what was your thought process in all of this? And it's kind of different journey from the other venture-backed startups. So you want to talk something about that?
So firstly, I think I'd age on my time. If I have to do this again, I would definitely raise capital, hire people. Back then, we used to do all the order packing ourselves. We used to answer customer calls, all of it. Everything was done by us, right? Even if you had to get, let's say, products from the vendor to our house at that point, and then eventually to our garage, and we had to ship it out also from there. So we were doing it all of it ourselves. So we didn't need that much money. In fact, if I had to sound arrogant, we each put in 1.75 lakh. It was about 5.5 lakh which we started with, and without any other capital. And it's possible if you are patient. Without any further capital, we had already grown to a 30 crore business by 2018. So we were very profitable and cash flow positive. When you have to be, you will be. I think right now, the ecosystem just floods you with so much cash. It almost makes it sinful to be profitable. When you're starting, there's so much pressure of growth that's there because you've taken someone else's money, but we hadn't, right? And I'm not saying we didn't want to raise money later on. We wanted to for some time, but no one was going to give 3 engineers who have no background in tech or apparel money to start an apparel company in a highly competitive space. So I think we were almost forced to be bootstrapped for the first 5-6 years.
Yes, and I think you raised capital at like a position of strength, I would say, like where you already were profitable, cash flow positive, and then
we always raise capital at a position of strength. I think it's really poor to do it the other way around.
No, definitely. I think these are things that are being discussed now, given this funding winter. But I think you went through that journey right from the beginning, so that's wonderful to note. So let's come to your people and culture elements, right? And you also mentioned that you named your company the Soul Store because you wanted to follow your soul. And I think I watched one of your interviews, right? So how do you bring this into your people philosophy? What's like the culture at Soul Store, and how are you able to attract and retain people?
What's very critical is that, so when we left our job, we left it because we wanted to enjoy what we do, and we do. So that's success. But when we created the organization, we wanted to make sure that everyone comes in with this feeling. So getting people who are passionate and like exactly what we're about to build was not easy. But once you get them, I think it's easy. Then that passion flows through in decision making, in the product, even in the way people answer customer calls, the way our store managers manage the store. Like our designers are very big pop culture fans, and they will design for the fan. Like, so by the fan, for the fan, that culture flows through. And then you don't have to worry about micromanaging. You don't have to worry. Your managing becomes additive. It doesn't become like just to get execution done.
Right. They're truly owning the piece of work, and hence they don't need to be micromanaged, like you said. So that's wonderful. That brings me now that you've created multiple owners, they're owning a lot of pieces of work and making it work. So how do you convert them to employee owners in your company, right? So now let's talk about your ESOPs, right? And traditional companies, I mean, ESOPs in a way was not a age-old phenomenon, right? A lot of companies, it was promoter run, and now we are seeing a lot of companies being more vocal and democratizing ownership in a way, right? So how did this approach, like you said, when you started off, you didn't even know what ESOPs were, right? So how did that journey happen? Talk about how ESOPs have evolved in your company over a period of time, as it went along. Yeah.
So ESOPs were first created by our first investor who said, "Do you have ESOPs and what's your ESOP pool?" And we asked him, "What's an ESOP pool?" And then he spoke about, you should be giving out shares, and I was really sad at that point that I didn't think of this before. But then we realized that we created an ESOP pool, and the first people to receive it were the guys who were in our warehouse from the start, like, who used to help us pack orders and things of that nature. So literally these guys were the first guys to get ESOPs out of it. And then we used to give ESOPs to almost most people who would have decision-making capacity, people who would need to take ownership. And a lot of it is people we wanted to share ownership with as well. We feel like the more, it's not, ownership isn't really very task-based, but it's very culture-based. But having that culture of ownership was super important to build. And now that's why even people who pack in the warehouse or people who do, performance marketing for us, they fight with me saying, "Vedang, we're not increasing the budgets." Usually it's always the other way around. They will be like, no, we're not spending more money. This is too costly. Our profitability will get impacted, which I think is success. The moment people counter your point of view, I think that is success for me. Because then you know that people are thinking for the betterment of the company and not for pleasing you, which will be the betterment of their career in some twisted way.
Right. I think it's both the culture I think you've created of ownership, and also the family of ESOPs. It gives them a sense of ownership more legally in that sense also, right? It's a share-based instrument in that sense. I'm glad. I mean, these nuances are really incredible, right? Where they are pushing you to profit it, because in a way it's also impacting them in some way or the other. Building a large, profitable, cash flow guzzling business in a way. So wonderful. Yeah, good. You have something else to add?
Yeah, because for everyone, the real liquidity comes during IPO, and they all know that that's when the maximum value of the shares will.
And of course, joining like the person who was in your warehouse, it will be a multiple fold, I guess. The value that person will accrue might be multiple fold, because that's where startups value creation will be. Amazing. These. Yeah.
Almost. Oh yeah. I think that's for everyone. They can all, as I say this, right? You can pay rent with your salary, but you'll buy a house with your shareholding.
Correct. Correct. I think, yeah, ultimately everyone aspires for that financial independence, and that really comes from equity and value from equity, kind of a thing. Incredible. I think we're already, these are the fables that we try to kind of collect along the way. So I'm glad you brought some of those instances, and would love to see more of these stories play out as you do more of these programs. But talking about your design, right? And many times, like you said, you were doing ESOPs for the first time, right? How has your learning evolved? And because there are multiple nuances to ESOPs, right? I mean, we claim to be kind of experts in this, but when we talk to a lot of founders, we try to explain every nuance around it. Things around what should be the pool size, exercise, vesting, so many nuances. So you want to call out anything based on your scheme, something that you gotten right, something that you have good feedback from your employees, etc.
So I feel like it's evolved for us, especially after we've given liquidity. What used to happen is, initially, right, when we were hiring people, it would be, Acha, you forget 20 lakh ESOPs, give me 5 lakh rupees extra in cash. And that's the problem. Like for me, that's so much cheaper for the company, but that means there's no ownership or longevity in the thinking of where the company will go. And it's not their fault. It's because of the way the ecosystem is, right? Almost every startup has given ESOPs out, and I would say 98% of them don't have liquidity in these ESOPs, and I would say 50% of them maybe will never see it also. So I understand where these people are coming from. I absolutely do. It's not their fault. Hence, when I wanted to change this, that when we were giving out ESOPs, I wanted to make sure that people understood that there is liquidity to this, and some people did, some people didn't. So I'll give you an example, right? A lot of these, let's say people who are not very financially literate, like people in the warehouse, some people who may be in design but don't have that sense of finance. For them, when we bought out all their vested shares, this was just free money that came in. And that's when they got curious to understand more about the ESOPs. When we said, hey, by the way, you're going to get so many lakhs, crores, whatever it is. And then they were like, wait, what? And we were like, yeah, remember we give you those ESOPs. Now everyone is looking at, and I think nobody opened their Qapita also account before. Now everyone opens their Qapita account. Oh, what's my value now? How much has vested? And that's very encouraging. And what this also helps me do is, when the value of the company increases, they know that the value of the shares have increased, and they know that that's almost money in the bank for them now. Because if we've set a precedent, that culture, that attitude, all of that has changed.
And that's definitely the case, right? We've seen companies, once they do liquidity, it kind of becomes kind of structured in with a certain seasonality, right? I mean, maybe annual or things like that. But that's a great way for also companies to communicate to their employees that, hey, there is value appreciation, and you will see the money kind of in the banks. That was very insightful, Vedang. So now let's talk about the liquidity program itself, right? It's wonderful to know that some of your early employees were also able to see the money maybe they didn't expect, but maybe now, like I said, I'm glad that they're logging into their Qapita dashboards. So how did you think about doing this liquidity program, right? What was really the nudge, right? You also closed a recent funding round, and you can also talk about how was it received and all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a surprise to everyone, right? Because we never promised liquidity or even suggested it till IPO, but it happened. The nudge for us was twofold. One is we really wanted people to feel that ownership and understand the value of the shares that we are giving, and change, and even solidify that culture of ownership as much as can be, right? Especially when you're giving it. It's almost like giving a box and people don't realize there's a diamond inside. And we really needed to shout that out. But again, since everyone says it, we wanted to make sure that we are different and we do this. This way, people work towards the overall valuation, profitability, longevity, IPO-ability of the company, because it's in their best interest as well. So now the company's best interest and their best interests are just aligned. Also, the incoming investors are very happy to actually help facilitate this, since we didn't really need too much money in the company, so we were very happy to like for their ownership to be of a certain scale. I think this was one path to that as well. The company is decently profitable right now, so there's no need of, yeah.
That's definitely a long-term investment, I would say, right? I mean, you raise capital to, grow, right? And people are helping you grow in a way. So in a way, that's money put to good use. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, it's the best investment. It's better than inventory or working capital, for sure.
Right, right, right. No, that's wonderful. That's a great perspective, actually, right? Because of course you raise capital, but then just giving the employees the taste of their efforts over a long period through ESOPs will maybe motivate them to do further as well. And that brings me to the next question, right? So one nuance I observed about your liquidity program is you actually allowed 100% of the vested options to be enable them to be participate basically, right? So what was the rationale there? And generally the averages are much lower in the industry, right?
I think the average is lower in the industry because people are scared that they'll leave. Uh, Honestly, I am going to be very arrogant. I have no fear. People love what they do here. I don't have to fight for salary and money. I don't compete with other people for that because we are providing true joy at work, happiness at work. In fact, we did an employee survey just ENPS. So every team member voted on this. The highest two voted in this was one, I am really proud to work here at the Soul Store, and the second is the impact of my work is very important. It like the work I do makes a lot of impact at the workplace. So I think that is ownership. Those two lines are actually translated to I have high ownership. I am proud to work here, and the work I do is very important. So when you solve for these two things, I feel you're solving for a lot because it's not easy to engineer this. In fact, you can't. It has to be true. And the way you make it true is one, you give people the eyesight of what work they do, how it changes and impacts the company. That's very important in the way we flow our KPIs and NPS of these people. Like how their work affects customer NPS, that is. So I think that is something that we've done really well, and that's why we have a little attrition. I can't think of people who actually left because they don't like the place. Actually, can't think of even one example.
Amazing. I mean, that's really inspiring the way you look at it, right? I mean, employee NPS leading to customer NPS, right? Because I mean, happy employees working eventually will build a good company, solving customers' problems better. Great perspective, I would say. Not many things like that. And then couple of other nuance. Your exercise price is quite low, right? So again, that's way to.
Yeah, we give it for 1 rupee. Look, I'm not here to gamify this. We're not here to, try and optimize it. We truly believe in like sharing the wealth creation that is there. So we give it out for 1 rupee, the ESOP. It's actually as good as free. Like the day we say here's 10 lakh, that in ESOPs or 1 crore in ESOPs or whatever that amount is just given literally free, and whatever value is built on that is also given. I wouldn't say the word free is really not the right word. I'm just trying to make it easy for people to understand. Everyone puts in a lot of effort, blood, sweat, and tears. So we give it to people for their efforts, basically.
Right. Yeah, of course, it's obviously a form of a compensation in a way, right? ESOPs and like many people, they might have exercise price much higher. So basically, they have to earn out the value as the value appreciates. But like you are giving upfront incentive, as unrealized value, right? So that's wonderful.
And that's why it was very important for the liquidity to happen, so that people realize that this is real value.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're just spending a lot and nothing's happening. Like you don't get the upside.
Yes, it's the proof of the pudding, right, in the eating. So I'm glad that you could help achieve that, in your company. And the other thing that I observed is, you also made the whole liquidity event cashless, and there's no like your employees didn't have to pay I mean, there's a cleaner way, where they don't have to pay out anything out of pocket and things like that, right? And where maybe we also help structure that at Qapita. So anything you wanted to talk about that really benefited the employees' experience?
Yeah, see, look, I think in this country, a lot of the legality and structuring is super complicated, and it's super expensive also, right? Like to exercise your ESOP, you have to pay this capital gain tax upfront, and like let's assume that some of these people in the warehouse, which I was talking about, their salaries may be 20,000, 50,000 a month, whatever it is. But and then these capital gains, let's say for a 50 lakh payout is 25-30% of that. Like, how are they going to pay this amount? It makes no sense. Uh, so I think it was just, I won't get into the technicalities of how we structured it, but it had to be structured in a way in which it becomes cashless for people. Because even for me, right, like let's assume I do some secondary. These amounts are just so larger than life that you won't be able to pay the tax on it before you get the money. You have to make it cashless.
Exactly. I think that was the critical element here, right? So, like, you didn't want cash to be going out of the pocket. You had to link it with the liquidity so that it's more cleaner, efficient, and better experience, like I think Vedang was mentioning. So, that's good to know. And a couple more questions actually. So, one was how are you looking at, how do you communicate about these ESOPs? Of course, there's good to know that employees are now having a dashboard and they log into Qapita more frequently after the liquidity. But then, do you also have means to communicate more? Are there town halls or something like that you do for your employees?
So I think we were very vocal about the fact through the organization that we will be buying out all vested ESOPs. So we do we were very loud about it at town halls, in general on the floor. But I think what we've been consistent pre this event and post this event is that we keep encouraging people to take more ownership so that we can see that ownership and reward them with real ownership in the company that is having some ESOPs. And I think that just after the liquidity event, that conversation has had a lot more merit and fruit. And this I sometimes say in passing, sometimes in formal meetings. I don't think there's a structure to it. It is just the consistency of what needs to be done.
Yes, definitely. And you made a start, and we hope to partner with you more and more on that. So maybe I think one thing you already answered that I had wanted to ask is navigating the board and the investors, and I think you brought that as a topic. And how was it received? Yeah.
It's received very well actually because it means the founders would rather let the team get liquidity versus them. So the board was very happy about it. It just shows our confidence in the business. It shows. I think they knew that this is a true win-win-win situation amongst all stakeholders. So there was no problem in this. The board is very happy. In fact, now what I tell the team is, let's all work towards our next liquidity event. Maybe we can get the valuation to a certain amount, and maybe we can ask someone to buy out ESOPs again. It doesn't have to be till the IPO. And it's a good carrot because value of the company is health of the company. And in today's ecosystem, unit economics, profitability, all of this generates value and not just scale. So everyone's aligned, and it's a nice place and feeling to be in.
No, that's beautiful, and I'm glad you already have engaged on doing the next liquidity program or talking about it. It's also giving your employees a confidence, like you said. Consistency really helps in making it work, right? So last thing, right? Last question actually I have is you just finished 10 years, right? And you told about your story, as a 23-year-old. So what will you, how do you think your journey to being a 43-year-old would be, right? And how do you see building this? Where do people figure in here, and people ownership as they create value for the company? How do you see value creation generating for them as well?
See, I'll just be very frank. Honestly, everyone asks me what's your 10-year plan and all. I always have 5-year plans, 10-year plans, but I'm excited and happy to change it on a weekly, monthly basis. We are look. I will not comment too much because it's a very boring topic about what our future plans are and value and when we'll IPO. I think there are enough of publications that have it. But I'll just leave you with two things here. One is it's very important that not just the team, but the entire ecosystem makes money. And what I mean by that is your suppliers, your vendors, your people like your delivery partners. Everyone needs to do well. If you start squeezing someone, they will squeeze on. Like let's assume this T-shirt, right? It's very high quality. I'm very happy with it. But imagine if I told the vendor, no, don't give me for 100 rupees, give me for 90 rupees, whatever the price is. Then he'll have to cut down on quality, because everyone has to feed people. I think it's like ESOPs is just one part of making sure the entire ecosystem is doing well, and that's everyone's responsibility jointly. The second thing, which is not a question you asked, but this is for me victory. During COVID, when things weren't going well, we was cash strapped. We didn't have cash, and your orders just stopped. I had to pay out a lot of people in shares, and they were very happy to take it. And those who did just saw the massive upside to it. So I think I think that's a victory for me in terms of the fact that the promise we made has come true, and more, and the faith that people saw has been delivered.
Right. No, wonderful, Vedang. I think it kind of answered the question, right, in a sense that how you are looking at this instrument as, rewarding or, generating that wealth that perhaps maybe they didn't foresee entering in, but then that's the fables of ESOP, as we say it, right? There's pleasant stories of how value and wealth gets created. And we believe this equity revolution is here to stay. And there are cases like this, will inspire many more founders. We're seeing this much and more happening in the last 2-3 years. And we see this going definitely in a positive direction. So with that, Vedang, it's any other thing that you would like to add before I let you go? Yeah.
No, this has been a great conversation. I'm so happy. Thank you for making our ESOP journey really easy. Qapita has been awesome. Looking forward to working with you in the future as well.
Thank you, Vedang. To many more liquidity programs for you, for your employees and your stakeholders, and many more, wealth creation for many more people through ESOPs. On that note, Vedang, it's been a pleasure hearing you. I think thanks for being so candid, and all the best for your growth journey and for all your employees to have many more fables of ESOP. Thank you so much.
Thank you.